Are you ready?
No, I said, are you ready?
Football is officially back. For the next 25 weeks, we're going to have some type of NFL action, and it all starts tonight as we're going to get 2 of the 16 total games from preseason week number 1 over the next 4 days. For the casual fan, this is going to be a long 3 weeks as the preseason is just kind of for fantasy football. But for the diehards, this is where the fun starts. And as we know, many starters are going to sit. But some of these guys at the end of the roster, they're fighting for their jobs. And as we saw last year with a guy like Brock Purdy, even Mr. Irrelevant, even the last pick in the draft, can show some flashes in preseason and be a pivotal part for your team down the line. Not to mention, there's going to be multiple exciting rookies like Bijan Robinson and the 3 quarterbacks that are going to make their debuts. So it's going to be a super fun weekend here. If you like sports podcasts, I'm telling you this is the podcast for you. As we drop 2 sports podcasts a week, as well as 2 fantasy football episodes. So if you enjoy this channel at any point, please support us down below as we're on the road to 500 subscribers. And we can't get there without you guys. As always, timestamps will be in the description of the video. Without further ado, this is the Anomaly Podcast. Let's dive into the Week 1 slate of games. Alright, on your screen now, you see the Week 1 slate of games, starting with CJ Stroud's debut against Bill Belichick, the greatest coach of all time, all the way down into the San Francisco and Las Vegas game on Sunday, midday Sunday. So 16 games over the next 4 days. Again, football is officially back. But I should also start this by saying that it's preseason for me too. So I'm going to give you predictions for these preseason games, but I'm not going to really take it seriously. I'm going to go through the games, give you the key notes for each game. But again, whatever my record is for the next 2 or 3 weeks of these preseason games, I'm not taking too seriously. I might pick it simply because I want to see a certain player dominate. That could really be all. Don't take these predictions too seriously, as it is, again, just preseason. But without further ado, let's get into it as the first game tonight, the first game of NFL preseason, aside from the Hall of Fame game, is going to be the Houston Texans versus the New England Patriots. It's CJ Stroud's preseason debut, in other words. But starting here, the number 2 and the number 3 overall pick from this past draft against CJ Stroud and Will Anderson, star edge out of Alabama. They're both going to make their preseason debuts for the Texans tonight against New England. Again, against maybe the greatest coach of all time. The Texans, they're getting 2.5 points, and the over-under is around 39.5. I believe the Texans can cover that spread. But I will say it's going to be probably a lower scoring game as both teams should have promising defenses with DeMeco Ryans there in Houston. But for Houston, I'm looking forward to see their rookies. Most notably CJ Stroud, Will Anderson, Tank Dell, John Mechie, technically as he didn't play last year. But first-time DeMeco Ryans is the head coach of this team. Also, there's a first-time offensive coordinator in Bobby Slowick. And I'm sure they're going to keep things relatively vanilla. Let CJ Stroud catch a groove on the field as it's going to be basic read after basic read, not trying to overwhelm him in his first game against the Patriots. But it will be interesting to see how much influence a guy like Kyle Shanahan has on the schemes and the play calling of DeMeco Ryans and Bobby Slowick, as both of those guys come under Kyle Shanahan here in the last couple years. It is just crazy to think that DeMeco Ryans, as now the head coach of the Texans, former player for the Texans, that his NFL career started when the opposing coach in this game, Bill Belichick, he already coached 6 seasons, and he already won 3 Super Bowls by the time DeMeco Ryans debuted as an NFL player, and now he's a head coach. So it's crazy how time works, and it's crazy the longevity of Bill Belichick. But for New England, it all comes down to the offensive side of the ball. We know this defense will be amazing, because that's what Belichick has done in his entire tenure in New England, is have great defenses. But with Bill O'Brien back as the offensive coordinator for this offense, we desperately want to see some type of improvement from last year's. It can't get much worse than it was last year with Matt Patricia calling the plays. Again, I'm going to go with the Texans to cover the spread in a low-scoring shootout, though, maybe like a 13-10 game, something like low-scoring like that. Regardless, Texans take this one, and again, Maybe this is just biased towards the rookies. That could very well be it. But moving over to the second game tonight, we're going to have the Minnesota Vikings versus the Seattle Seahawks. Again, it's going to be a lot less exciting than the first game, but I guess the biggest story here is that Brian Flores is returning to football, and he's going to be the defense coordinator for the Minnesota Vikings. It's also the start of his journey back to being a head coach again here in the NFL after kind of being blackballed there. Regardless, for Minnesota, it's all about improvement on the defensive side. They brought in Flores to improve that side of the ball, which we know that's his specialty. Now, we probably won't see much of the playbook tonight, but Flores' scheme is kind of cut and dry. It's a lot of man pressure, and that's pretty much what you're going to see for the majority of the year. But maybe we see a splash play or two or some, mix-ups here in the defense. Right now, it's kind of just trying to get the lineup set for the regular season. Also for Minnesota, on the offensive side of the ball, Jordan Addison is going to make his preseason debut, right? And he was my favorite wide receiver in this previous draft class. Big expectations for Jordan Addison this year in fantasy football, and it all starts tonight, right? For Seattle, they're home here, and they've already dealt with some offseason injuries, and they're going to be a little shorthanded going into tonight, as running backs like Ken Walker or the rookie Zach Charbonnet out of UCLA, that kind of rhyme there. Both of those guys are expected to sit out, and that's going to make it a DJ Dallas game. If you guys don't know who DJ Dallas is, I don't blame you, but he's been a rotational back for the Seattle offense for a couple years now, and he was a preseason gem last year, so it'll be fun to see him, I guess, get back to playing like he was last year. I'd also love to see Jackson Smith-Njigba. I think he was the first receiver off the board in the draft class this previous year out of Ohio State. He is making his preseason debut for the Seattle Seahawks. So it's going to be interesting to see if he suits up because he's had some hamstring issues. Regardless, I'd like to see it if he does. At the end of the day, Drew Lock is still serviceable. Regardless if Geno Smith plays a drive or two, Drew Lock is going to be the majority quarterback for Seattle in this game. He's still very serviceable. So I'm going to take the more serviceable quarterback for Seattle, and I'm going to take the home field advantage in the 12th man with Seattle in this game to cover the spread. But again, another low-scoring shootout. Maybe it could be like a 21-10 game, something that's barely under the spread, right? But that's going to do it for the Thursday night games. We're going to move over to Friday now, as Friday Night Lights, I guess. But we're going to start with the Giants going to Detroit to take on the Lions. And it's going to be a battle of the coaches, right? Both of these teams have big expectations this year. Year 2 under Brian Daboll and year 2 under Dan Campbell for each respective organization. But for New York, they're the road team here, and it's doubtful to me to see much reps from any of their top guys like the Saquon Barkleys, the Daniel Jones. But in all honesty, tonight is all about their wide receiver room, as I'm looking to see, for one, how dynamic Jalen Hyatt can be, their rookie out of Tennessee, as he has come out and he has big expectations for himself. He wants to win the Rookie of the Year on the offensive side of the ball, and hopefully we can see a big player or two tonight with his athleticism and his speed, as he's one of those guys that if you could just throw him a screen pass, there's the potential he could take it all the way. Bryce Ford Wheaton is a guy that a lot of people don't know, but I got to see him play a couple times at West Virginia. I think he was undrafted, if I'm not mistaken, but he is going to make his debut for the Giants tonight. He's going to be another guy to look out for, as he is 6'3 or 6'4 for the Giants, and with how wide open their wide receiver room is, he might crack the rotation. The question for tonight for New York is, can we get another version of the Victor Cruz game? That is the question, because they need a number one option in that offense. For Detroit, it's all about Sam Laporta for me, tight end out of Iowa. As again, if you've kept up with the draft this offseason, this is one of the most talented tight end groups we've seen in a long time. Headlined like guys like Michael Mayer, Dalton Kincaid. But Sam Laporta was a guy that kind of went under the radar. But guys like George Kittle around the NFL have praised Sam Laporta highly, and they've said he's the best one in this class. So if that is the case, I think we're going to see some flashes tonight. Even if it is, again, just a preseason game, I think Sam Laporta is in a good situation for his first year with a good quarterback in Jared Goff in a winning situation in Detroit. I would like to see just a big play or two here in this first game. Also, side note, I'd love to see Hendon Hooker in his debut as another guy out of Tennessee. but he is a 25, 26-year-old quarterback. He should be able to come in and make an immediate impact for this Lions club. Give me Detroit at home to cover the spread. Hopefully it's a shootout to kick off Friday's slate of games. But moving over to the Pittsburgh Steelers and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. For Tampa, this game opens up a new chapter for them officially, as Tom Brady is officially retired. At least we think so. He might come out for the fourth time, but Tom Brady's officially gone. He's in the rear view mirror, right? So this game's going to be highlighted by their current quarterback battle, whether if it's Baker Mayfield or Kyle Trask. Baker's going to get the nod in Friday's game, but Kyle Trask is going to get some run this preseason. So we're going to have to see who comes out on top in Tampa, but we know one thing's for sure, and that's Mike Tomlin's not going to make it easy. We'll start with Pittsburgh, as they're given a 1.5 in this game, and reports say that their veterans might actually play a decent amount here in the first half of this game. Take that with a grain of salt, as it's just preseason rumors. We can't really trust any preseason headlines, right? Unless it's for an injury. But however, I am excited to see some of their rookies take the field here, as guys like Broderick Jones, a left tackle there, Joey Porter, a guy who has a lot of bloodline connections there with his father playing as a Steeler for many, many years. And then, of course, Darnell Washington, a guy who's like 6'8" at the tight end position. He was a killer at Georgia for a couple years, not literally, but he was really good on the field. You know, with his size, anything is possible. And I think the Steelers now have like two 6'8" tight ends, as they have Zach Gentry and Darnell Washington. That team is just ridiculous, right? That receiving room. All three of these guys, though, with Joey Porter, Darnell Washington, and Broderick Jones, are going to be the highlights for Pittsburgh in this game. For Tampa, I talked about it earlier, it's their quarterback competition. As it came, going into camp, it felt like it was Baker's job to lose, but there's constant clips and highlights of Baker turning the ball over, as he's super inconsistent, and though he's shown flashes, he can't take care of the ball. While on the flip side, the third year man, I think, in Kyle Trask, he's protecting the ball, he's being smart with it. This Buccaneers offense projects to be a very game-managed offense, right? They're not going to blow you out the water. They're going to do what's necessary to win the games. And if that's the case, you're going to need a game manager. You're going to need someone who takes care of the ball. And if Trask is doing that better than Baker Mayfield, I wouldn't doubt that that's the route they go starting week 1. But for Baker's sake, I hope that this game goes in his favor early. I hope he proves that he's the starter for this offense. But again, on the other side for the Steelers, Kenny Pickett might play the first quarter, or he might even just play the first drive. But when he goes to the bench, you have a very serviceable backup in Mitch Trubisky to come in and take over, as he might be the best backup here in the NFL. Regardless, I'm going to take Pittsburgh on the road and Mike Tomlin to cruise over a Tampa team trying to figure out the most important position on the football field. As moving over to the Green Bay Packers and the Cincinnati Bengals, this game will be highlighted by the Jordan Love era, as it officially goes underway on Friday. And for the Cheeseheads, for the Packers fans, it's Jordan Love's time to shine. This team did everything they could have done possibly to surround their young quarterback. They drafted Jaden Reed. They drafted Luke Musgrave, tight end there. And both of those guys have showed out in camp, right? They already have two young receivers in Christian Watson and Romeo Doubs to pair with those rookie receivers. And it's going to be a fun offense this year, especially with the running backs as well, with A.J. Dillon, with Aaron Jones, and a competent offensive line. It's going to be fun, but they definitely have a tough challenge ahead of them here in this first game against Lou Anarumo's Cincinnati Bengal defense. For Cincy, as they are the underdogs here, right, as Green Bay is given a 1.5. But for Cincy, their stars are going to be out for this one. No surprise. We're not going to see Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, any of those top guys. But, however, we are going to be able to see Myles Murphy, the first-round pick out of Clemson, edge rusher, if you didn't know. But he's going to be looking to make an impression in the Anarumo scheme, as it's a very aggressive defensive scheme. So if Myles Murphy can make a couple plays, I think he can get some rotational minutes or plays or snaps is a way to put it there in week 1 of the season. But not to mention, Joseph Ossai is a guy who made a big mistake in the AFC title game last year. But aside from that one mistake, he showed a lot of promise in that game and in that playoff run. It's going to be interesting to see him coming back. So they're going to have two really intriguing edge rushers here against a Green Bay offensive line that's not going to be at full health in this first game. So it's going to be interesting to see if Jordan Love can maintain or manage the pressure that's going to happen from this Cincinnati front. But give me the Green Bay. I believe in Jordan Love. I think they can cover the spread on the road. And I'm going to take Green Bay to win this game, maybe with a field goal, right? Moving over to the Bijan game. Atlanta Falcons versus the Miami Dolphins. Atlanta's given 2.5 points. And for Atlanta, this game is simply for Bijan Robinson. The only reason people are going to watch this game is because of Bijan Robinson. We're excited to see Bijan and only Bijan for this game for the Atlanta Falcons, as whether if it's rushing on the ground, receiving through the air, returning kicks, we're going to take whatever we can get to see any highlights from Bijan in this game. As for us fantasy players, I'd love to see at least one explosive play, right? Wherever it comes on the field, I'd love to see one sign to make at least that first round price in fantasy a little bit more manageable, right? To manage in your head. Regardless, I'm hoping to see a good game from Bijan. Hopefully no injuries, right? But for Miami, there's questions up front. But this game is going to be highlighted by their quarterback room, as I know they have Tua Tagovailoa, and to me, he's a top 10 quarterback in the NFL when healthy. However, we know Tua has his health issues last year. We know he's going to have those concerns all of this year. Even if he has the minor hits, he might even be, taken out of the game for a late hit on the quarterback. So whether if it's Mike White, a serviceable backup, or Skylar Thompson, a guy who has experience in the scheme, either of these guys, we're going to need to see them get comfortable in this Mike McDaniel offense, and we're going to need to see them be good at it, because at any point this year, Tua might go down with an injury, or the team might take extra precaution and take Tua out, and one of those guys might have to step in. So no surprise here, though, on the road, give me Bijan and the Falcons, as Bijan's going to rush for 500 yards and 5 touchdowns here as the greatest preseason performance ever. Moving over to the Washington and the Cleveland Browns game. Cleveland's given 2.5. And for Washington, we'll start with them because they are the road team. The question here is, how effective is Eric Bieniemy's coaching? As reports from the Commanders camp suggest that the offense has had a tough go, and Eric Bieniemy is very rough on this offense. And that's creating some drama around the new offensive coordinator there, of course, in Eric Bieniemy. But as of now, I think the second-year man, Sam Howell, is set to be the starter for this offense. But again, I can see a storyline where Eric Bieniemy and Ron Rivera are like Jacoby Brissett played for the Browns last year. Let us throw in the veteran. Let him command this offense for the first game and, try and get us off on the right foot. I wouldn't doubt that, but I also wouldn't mind seeing Sam Howell get some more run and the starting lineup of this offense. Regardless, we're going to have to see how effective Bieniemy's hard coaching style has been this past offseason. For the Cleveland Browns, we looked great in the Hall of Fame game, but with some starters returning to the field in this game, I'm hoping we get some clarity in the wide receiver room. Also, of course, I'd love to see Deshaun Watson play, but with how DTR looked last week, and we might want to see more promise from Kellen Mond as a backup, I think it's more likely that he even gets more time on the field than in the first game. I think DTR might play an entire half to maybe solidify himself as the third string, because it seems like Joshua Dobbs has that backup spot locked up. But give me the Browns to cover the spread in this game, in a low-scoring game, because I am a biased Browns fan, and it's preseason, so why am I going to pick against my team when we have our younger stars maybe suiting up for this one? Moving over to the Denver Broncos and the Arizona Cardinals. This game is Sean Payton's reign starts here. His tenure starts here as they're given 3.5, even on the road over there in Phoenix. But for Denver, reports say that the starters will start this game for Denver on both sides of the ball. All eyes are going to be on Mr. Unlimited, Mr. Let's Ride, Russell Wilson, and this offense. As, again, they struggled a lot last year. A lot of people say Russell Wilson is not the same. Sean Payton believes that he just had a bad scheme and coach around him, so we're going to have to see which side of that coin is true. But if Russell Wilson does struggle in this game, I think the pot's going to start to stir if the backup Jarrett Stidham can get some run and be a little productive in the offense in the second half, as Sean Payton has shown a lot of high praise on Jarrett Stidham. And to be clear, I do not believe that Jarrett Stidham is anywhere near close to taking Russell Wilson's job. At least he shouldn't be. But that won't start. I don't think that's going to stop the media from at least stirring up some rumors and, I guess stirring the pot to put the case in for Jarrett Stidham to take over this Denver offense. For Arizona, they're home here, and they're going to be a mess this year, as we don't know when Kyler Murray's going to be back. So the next couple of weeks are going to determine their starting quarterback, whether if it's the 37-year-old Cleveland legend Colt McCoy, rookie Clayton Tune, which they drafted in the 5th round, veteran Jeff Driscoll, or David Blough. That David Blough kind of describes their quarterback room right now. But as you can tell, their options are endless for elite quarterbacks. Nonetheless, it's going to be something to watch for the next couple weeks. Is Arizona, they're probably in the running for Caleb Williams after next year's draft. Give me Denver to easily take this one in Sean Payton's preseason debut in Denver, as they look to get off on the right foot there in Mile High. Moving over to Tennessee and Chicago, this game is going to be highlighted by the quarterback room in Tennessee, as Tennessee is given, or Chicago's given 3.5, But for Tennessee, it's all about their quarterbacks, as how is the second-year man Malik Willis and the rookie Will Levis fare in their debuts for this season. But to me, the biggest story doesn't come out on the field for the Tennessee Titans, as a cool story from this game that I read was that Mike Vrabel, we know the head coach of the Titans, he's going to be naming the defensive line coach and an assistant head coach, Terrell Williams, the acting head coach for this game. So awesome gesture from Mike Vrabel, as you see these assistant head coaches that have had 20 years of NFL experience and coaching experience just sometimes never get that job, never get over the hump to have the opportunity. I think Mike Vrabel doing something like this for a guy that hasn't had much people look at him, and now he's putting that assistant coach in a position to maybe get a head coaching spot in the near future. So Mike Vrabel, stuff like this makes him one of the best coaches in the NFL, at least one of the most favorable head coaches. But for Chicago, we're going to get to see their wide receiver core for the first time. We're going to see their, revamped offense for the first time, as DJ Moore, Chase Claypool, and Darnell Mooney are going to have their first time on the field together as a collective group. But also guys like Velus Jones Jr. or the rookie Tyler Scott. Those are going to be some guys. All 5 of these guys are going to be looking to make some noise in this game. I'm not sure if we're going to see Justin Fields in this game, but I would assume so, as all reports say he's looked better than ever, especially through the air. So hopefully Justin Fields can get on the field at least for a drive here in this first game. Regardless, I think even if Justin Fields plays one drive and they score, I'm still going to take Tennessee, as they should have the quarterback advantage for the entirety of this game, whether who's at the quarterback. And I'm also going to go with Tennessee simply for their coaching staff storyline, right? As Terrell Williams is, I'm hoping he can get his first win and maybe make some noise, get his name out there a little bit more. It's an awesome gesture there from Mike Vrabel. Moving over to the Colts and the Buffalo Bills. For Indianapolis, we do believe that Gardner Minshew is going to be the starter for this game over Anthony Richardson, who was drafted early there in the first round. But Gardner Minshew, he has the experience in Shane Steichen's offense, the new head coach of this team, and Anthony Richardson's going to need some time to develop, at least in my opinion. So I understand why Gardner Minshew might get the nod early on. But who knows? Maybe Anthony Richardson comes out in the preseason and he has some of those wow plays, one of those X-Factor type plays. And maybe that's enough to put him over the edge and give him that nod week 1. Regardless, I think Indy, they're pretty set in stone. Regardless of if it's week 1 or week 4, we know eventually Anthony Richardson will be at the helm. For Buffalo, it's business as usual. There's nothing too glaring to look at here for this game, as they're not the favorite at home. So that tells you all you need to know about who they're playing in this game. But I guess the biggest question we can look for is, can Kaiir Elam take another step to be that cornerback 2 next to Trey White? As all reports say that Kaiir Elam is, they want him to be a cornerback 2, but he hasn't really lived up to that. So there's going to be like 6 or 7 different corners in this game for Buffalo. Maybe one of those guys can step up and make a name for themselves. Give me Indianapolis on the road with a game-winning drive from Anthony Richardson, because I'm a Gators fan, and even if I think he needs some time to develop, I'm still hoping the best for him. Moving over to the Jets and Panthers game, it's going to be the new-look Jets versus Bryce Young in his preseason debut. For the Jets, they fell short in the Hall of Fame game last week, but they still showed a lot of promise on the defensive side of the ball, especially in their young defenders. Guys like Will McDonald out of Iowa State, or Jermaine Johnson, who's a second-year man, or even Bryce Huff, who's a veteran here in the NFL. I expect for these younger defenders to continue to improve and I guess show even more promise before the NFL season. I would also like to see more continued improvement and I guess I would say just moments from Zach Wilson in this one, as he had that really nice pass, that 60 or 70 yard pass through the air last week against the Browns. I'd just like to see a little bit more consistency through the air, especially in the accuracy department for a guy like Zach Wilson. Moving over to Carolina, it's all about the number 1 overall pick. Bryce Young out of Alabama making his debut in this offense. There's questions about his size, but there's no questions about his talent. As Bryce Young has looked amazing in camp with his accuracy, with his ball protection, with his command of the offense, as the reports have said. I do want to see how he deals with the pressure up front from guys like Jermaine Johnson and Will McDonald. But I think I'll say this. In college, he was one of the best at just getting the ball out of his hands and making quick throws and accurately. So I think even if he struggles early on against this New York front, I think he's going to catch on quick because he's the number 1 pick for a reason, right? I'm going to go with the rookie sweep. I'm going to have C.J. Stroud, Anthony Richardson, and Bryce Young winning their preseason debuts. Give me the Panthers at home as the underdogs here, surprisingly, right? Moving over to the Philadelphia Eagles, going to Baltimore to try and knock off their historic run. And it's the game of Pro Bowl level quarterback, apparently. Tyler Huntley is going to be at the helm for the Baltimore Ravens as they're the favorites, given 3.5 points at home. But for Philadelphia, I'm looking to see how the former Georgia teammates do in their rookie preseason debuts, as guys like Jalen Carter, who is arguably the most talented player in the class, he had some off-the-field issues, so he fell all the way to the reigning NFC champions. But also Nolan Smith, one of the most intriguing prospects, as he's kind of like a joker card. You could play him at safety, linebacker, edge. So it's going to be interesting to see how they use both of those guys in the preseason. They lost a lot in their front seven this past offseason for the Philadelphia Eagles, but I think they also brought in a lot with Jalen Carter and Nolan Smith. So it'll be interesting to see how they hold up against a run-heavy offense in the Baltimore Ravens in this game. But for Baltimore, Zay Flowers makes his debut. He's a wide receiver out of Boston College. All reports say that he's been the best receiver for that Baltimore offense, and that's including veterans like Odell Beckham, Rashad Bateman. So if Lamar plays in this game, it's going to be interesting to see the connection between Odell Beckham and Lamar, or even Lamar and Zay Flowers. It's going to be interesting to see their connection. But if not, Tyler Huntley, who again was a Pro Bowl quarterback last year, is a very formidable backup, maybe the best backup quarterback in the NFL. But Baltimore has won like 23 straight preseason games. I expect them to try way too hard here, maybe get an injury or two. I think they cover the spread in a low-scoring game against the reigning NFC champs. So give me Baltimore. Moving over to Jacksonville, going to Dallas, as if you remember last year, these two teams put on an amazing regular season game later in the year as Dallas kind of fumbled that game away. But for Jacksonville on the road, I'm not expecting much from their team, but I am expecting a Tank Bigsby game, as he's a running back out of Auburn. He's going to be backing up Travis Etienne this year, and he's been killing it in camp. You know, I doubt Travis Etienne with his injury history. I don't think he's going to suit up for this game. But with that being said, why not, if you're Doug Peterson in this Jacksonville offense, go out there, let Tank Bigsby go out there and get his feet wet. You know, maybe touch the ball 15 to 20 times on the ground. I think this is a guy that is definitely a sleeper in fantasy football. He's a guy you want to get in the later rounds of your draft, because if Etienne goes down with an injury, like he has in the past, Tank Bigsby, I think, can have a very good rookie year, right? But we could, you know, another question for Jacksonville is, could we also see a Calvin Ridley appearance? That'd be interesting, as Calvin Ridley, again, I have big expectations for him in 2023. But for Dallas, this screams to be a Deuce Vaughn game. I don't expect Tony Pollard to suit up, but if you're not familiar with who Deuce Vaughn is a 5'7" running back who had a great career at TCU, or KSU, Kansas State University. but he's now in Dallas, and he's going to be backing up Tony Pollard. And that's intriguing for sure, as Tony Pollard, he hasn't shown over the years that he's a consistent workhorse-style running back, so maybe it turns into more of a committee than we think. I don't know, right? On one hand, it's going to be hard for defenses to see Deuce Vaughn at 5'7", but again, if he gets hit at the right angle, is he going to be able to hold up at his size, being only 5'7", compared to these all-world athletes? I think Deuce Vaughn can, regardless of if he gets hit or not. I think he can find the end zone at least once in this game. I think Dallas makes a statement here early on, and I think Deuce makes a statement. However, I'm going to take America's team to open up their preseason, even though they're the underdog at home. Give me Dallas with maybe the worst backups, but hey, they have Deuce Vaughn, right? I want to see a Deuce Vaughn game. Moving over to the Battle of LA, the Chargers are only favored. They're only given a point here. Regardless, in the Battle of LA for the Chargers, they're not going to be leaving the state of California for the entire preseason, so that's definitely nice for Chargers fans and their team. But Quentin Johnson out of TCU, he's making his debut. Here's his preseason debut here for the Chargers on offense. But also, JT Woods is a safety for this Chargers team. He's a second-year man, and he's kind of the counterpart to Derwin James there in that the backside of that defense. I want to see if he could take a step up this year, maybe show some flashes here in the second year in his career in preseason. Regardless, the Chargers, it's not a lot going on with them. We're going to see Easton Stick for some of this game, so it's not going to be a fun game to watch, but maybe Quentin Johnson can make a play. For the Rams, it's just been reported that Sean McVay is no longer considering retirement, and he is committed to the rebuild. So that's good for the Rams fans, as this is a guy that's been coaching for 7 years now. He's won a Super Bowl in that time, had multiple deep playoff runs, yet he is still the youngest coach in the NFL after coaching for 7 straight years. This dude is only 37 years old, in my opinion, a top 5 coach in the NFL. I'm just not sure what to expect from this Rams team aside from Stetson Bennett getting some snaps here in this game. Again, a lot of their stars are going to be out. Maybe Stetson Bennett can show some promise here and, I guess, succeed Matt Stafford one day there in LA. Moving over to the Chiefs and Saints game as we're winding down here. These are the last 2 games. These are the games we're going to see on Sunday this weekend. But it's going to be the new look Saints versus the champs. As for Kansas City, the reigning defending NFL champions, we're going to, I guess, look for some answers here in this wide receiver room. As right now, it's between Kadarius Toney, Rashee Rice, rookie there, Sky Moore, second-year man, Marquez Valdez-Scantling, and Justin Ross. And it's a toss-up as of right now who's going to be the starting 2 or 3 of that group. I would say MVS has a pretty good shot, and all reports say that Justin Ross has a pretty good shot after being undrafted to be a starter in this offense. So I think we're going to get some answers early on in this game about who might be the 2 starters for Kansas City. For New Orleans, Derek Carr is expected to make his Saints preseason debut this Sunday as he's going against an old division rival, right? He left the AFC West, and now he can't even escape the AFC West champions and the Kansas City Chiefs. So wherever he goes, the Chiefs are going to find him apparently. But we might also see a Michael Thomas appearance, as I don't, take that with a grain of salt. But reports have said, he might want to get his feet wet and get his legs back under him here in this preseason. I'm going to go with the Saints simply because Jameis is going to step in after Derek Carr, if Derek Carr does decide to even play. Jameis Winston is maybe the best backup here in the NFL. And let's not forget, the Saints just signed a Hall of Fame level tight end in the 40-year-old Jimmy Graham. So the connection of Jameis Winston, if I can talk, to Jimmy Graham is going to be, dynamic here in this preseason game. Regardless, you can never count out the Chiefs, but it's preseason, so I'm going to do just that. It's going to be the 49ers and the Raiders to be the final game here in Week 1 of the NFL preseason. And it's going to be Jimmy Garoppolo's return to matchup against the San Francisco 49ers. As San Francisco is given 3.5 in this game. And for San Fran, I think they just simply have the edge in this game. They have a way more complete roster. And whether if it's Brock Purdy, Trey Lance, or Sam Darnold, they are no doubt always going to have the better quarterback in this game at all times. Not to mention, I think they're going to have the best coach in this game, or arguably they have the best coach in the NFL that's going to be calling the plays for all three of these talented quarterbacks. For Las Vegas, though, it's going to be Jimmy's debut against his old team. There's not going to be much to look forward to for Vegas in this game, but I guess if I had to pinpoint one thing, maybe Zamir White, right? I know Josh Jacobs is likely not going to be back after next year in a Raiders uniform. So maybe Zamir White can get it going, running back out of Georgia there a couple years back. Maybe they can look to feed him more this preseason so they can kind of groom him in to the next starting running back for this ball club. Regardless, I think that's going to be an interesting game to end off our weekend. How will Trey Lance look? How is Sam Darnold going to look? Regardless, that is our preseason week 1 slate. On the screen now, you're going to see the recap as, again, we kind of ran through all of these games pretty quickly. So if you want to see, look for your game. In the red, we have the Thursday night games. In the orange, we have the Friday night games. In the yellow, we have the Saturday night games. And of course, the green is the Sunday night games here in week 1. A lot of road teams I picked here in week 1, but again, it's preseason and I wanted to go fun. I wanted to go with the rookies here. I even went with Will Levis. So I think all the top 4 quarterbacks in this previous draft class I picked to win their games here in week 1. That'll be interesting to see, right? As definitely not going to happen, but it would be cool to see. That's going to do it for today's show. As again, follow the socials, right? The Instagram, the other accounts that we do have. Follow us on YouTube here. Subscribe to the channel, like the video, because at the end of the day, we're going to be opening up some fantasy football leagues here in a week or two. So if you want to join something like that, if you're interested, please just let us know. Get at me in any way on any of the social medias that I have, as we're going to be having a lot of fun here in this football year. But regardless, that's going to do it for today's show. We'll see you guys tomorrow to close off of our Build a Team series for the NFC West. And again, after that, we're going to get into mock drafts after mock drafts, after draft strategy videos, some other podcasts here before the season. There's a lot on tap here for today's show, and I'm getting a new setup here. So if you made it to the show, you get to hear that early, as in a week or two, these videos might look completely different. Regardless, we'll see you guys then. I'll see you guys tomorrow for the fantasy episode. But if you don't watch that, I'll see you guys next week. Have a great weekend. Stay happy, stay healthy. We're out.